We have before us Bill 413-31, an act to repeal and reenact Title III of the Guam Code annotated relative to the Guam elections. This bill is a submission by the Guam Election Commission pursuant to Public Law 31-31, which directed the Guam Election Commission to review and update procedures and policies contained in Title VI of the Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations, and to recommend to the Guam Legislature any necessary changes to Title III. And so now we have before us the Guam Election Commission. I'd like to introduce the Executive Director, Ms. Maria Pangilinan, who in turn introduce the members of the Commission who is here with us today.
Half a day. To Senator Rodriguez's immediate right is our current acting chair, Senator Martha Ruth. As you may know, we have a new member has been appointed, but has not been sworn in. So to her immediate right, to Senator Ruth's immediate right, is Alice Tyron, the former chair of Guam Election Commission. To my immediate left is Attorney Jeff Cook, who is the Guam Election Commission legal counsel. Sidus Masi.
Thank you very much, Maria. What we'll do here is go section by section of this bill. And so if there's any discussions, I'd like to recognize Majority Leader.
One question I just want to find out, because earlier I thought you said that you were going to provide a copy in which we would know and be able to follow where the changes have been made. And I went through the bill and I wasn't able to find those. Could you then, as we go along, let us know exactly where those changes are?
Yes, Madam Speaker, and we did provide each office with a markup version that our office had to put together. But what we'll do is we have a copy here. Maybe we can have another copy made for everyone here. But just so that we don't waste any time, we'll go through it, and Maria would let us know where those changes were made, if that's okay.
Can I say something?
Yes.
If it's of any help to you, the bill that we worked with was moved around, and then we cleaned it up and presented the bill form the way it was transmitted to you. But be assured that the only additions to the existing statute was the federal requirements that forced the Guam Election Commission to incorporate in statute. And there were a lot of movements of the different sections, but nothing was deleted. The only addition being only the federal guidelines that we were required to. And if we changed anything, they were minor to take into account the fact that the statute has been amended haphazardly. It's so many times in the last 20, 30 years, and it was the Commission's effort to bring it all together and let it read easier and more smoothly as the chapters went along. The subcommittee that worked on the initial changes incorporated all the penalties regarding anything wrong with the election into one chapter, and that would be, I believe, Chapter 8 or 7. So all the penalties are in one chapter. You might find other penalties in some other areas, but not very many. But if you were to follow the original document showing where the changes are, it really would be just telling you where this section has been moved to. But please be assured that nothing was usurped here, nothing was deleted. We are not in a position to do that. You are. So technically you can just go with this because it's the same thing. It was just to, like I said, just to repeat myself, to bring it together. And I think one of the most important parts of about the fact that we submitted the bill in this format is because we finally worked out all the ambiguities, the gray areas. We changed words to either make them less or more, and I can point those things out to you as we go along. But as far as major changes, it would be fairly minimal. We did increase another major change would be just increasing the amount of payment to precinct workers. The commission felt that $150 a day to work from 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock the next morning was a bit unreasonable with the cost of living. And so the commission saw fit to increase it to $350 per person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. I recognize Senator Respicio.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chairman, and I want to just quickly provide some general comments, and I won't miss up the opportunity to thank the Guam Election Commission under the new Executive Director, Maria Pangilinan. It's a new attorney, Attorney Jeff Cook, as well as something's wrong with our audio this morning. It's not really that loud, but I wanted to also recognize the board members and I don't know, Alice, do we call you retiring board member? Anyway, I'm sorry to see you leave the Guam Election Commission. I'm really glad that you're here, notwithstanding still providing the kind of guidance, and it's reflective of the amount of man hours that you poured into this particular document. But Mr. Chairman, I wanted to say that the Guam Election Commission and your committee is responding to an earlier law which required this kind of work. As Senator Ruth pointed out, if you look at the existing code, it's been a hodgepodge of the things that have been repealed over the years. So my cursory review in comparison of Bill 413-31 versus existing law, I want to quickly point out that the overall review indicates existing code is cleaned up in Bill 413 through the removal of repealed sections, through the retitling of chapters, the reordering of chapters, and the revision of code results in fewer chapters than in the normal Guam Code annotated. This bill also takes into account the provisions in public laws enacted by this legislature, including amendments required by Public Laws 57-31, which is campaign advertising, Public Law 58-31 deals with the early voting, and Public Law 68-31, which requires the voter verified paper ballots, and they're all contained with this in this revised code. I think before we proceed, the one question that needs to be asked and answered is do you feel this Bill 413 takes into account all of the concerns and the as reported by the Guam Election Commission Board with respect to the problems surrounding the gubernatorial 2010 election? As a basis to which anybody on the panel, before we even begin to discuss this bill, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know if you can provide some feedback as to whether or not this bill would address a lot of the confirmed allegations raised surrounding the 2010 gubernatorial election.
My review of the proposed bill before you does address, although I have to take note that in redoing the bill, because this is not our version, I suppose I should ask the chair if you made any changes to our bill. Because if the committee made changes to the bill, then that throws the entire thing into question, in my view. I have not been able to read this because I was just presented to it, but I can tell you right now, Senator, that by including a Section 1 of legislative finding and intent, perhaps we don't need this in statute because it's twofold. One, we know that we have to update, review, make changes, etc., to the existing statute. we did have some problems, but I don't think that the problems of the 2010 election were because of, fraud and cheating and all of that. And we are in litigation right now in the courts, and the Section 1 of the legislative findings really puts the commission in a very precarious situation, because it's like saying that we agree that with the legislature that things went wrong. We don't think things went wrong.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, if I'm not correct, this is what the Election Commission submitted to the legislature, and you did not make any changes, and the version before us is as introduced.
Yes,
So
yeah.
you guys submitted this document. Now, that's the Republican representative of the Guam Election Commission. Mr. Chairman, can we just get, so there's balance,
Yeah.
maybe a Democratic
Say it.
representative? Do you, Mr. Carrillo, do you feel that this bill recognizes and addresses a lot of the concerns raised regarding the 2010 gubernatorial election cycle?
Okay,
Senator Ruth,
yes.
this is what the Election Commission is recommending us to adopt. So that's legislative findings is as substituted, as introduced by you guys.
Our bill did not have legislative
Yes,
findings.
if I can just make that clarification here. The only thing that we had added to this before introduction was the legislative findings and intent, but everything here is what is submitted by the Guam Election
that's
Commission.
good to know.
And so it was very important that we didn't make any changes in the committee, because this was something that an earlier law had directed the commission to come and work
Yes.
with. So no changes or additions were made, except for the addition of the legislative findings and intent, which is about 14 lines. Okay, we'll have Ms. Tyrone.
So he answered the question.
Okay, thank you, Senator Respicio. The work that was put in here, put into this Title III update was done by the entire commission. And in reference to anything changed, added, or deleted to the 2010 election, I can say we addressed the concerns appropriately. And anything at this point in time, because we are in litigation, I will not respond to, because anything I say can and will be used against me in a court of law in reference to 2010.
So even the earlier comment by Senator Ruth that she didn't think there was any fraud that occurred in the 2010 election should also be stricken out. Yeah,
Well, the litigation, or the suit filed against the,
yeah, but you cannot say, I don't want to reserve comment because we're in litigation, but yet comment
yeah.
on that, and why we went to
We
court.
should take the legislative findings out.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's duly noted. So what we'll do now is have the executive director go through the sections and explain to us where those changes were made, if any. Yes, we are. And if you have any question, please, the chair will recognize you.
So, Senator,
The only thing we added was this and everything else, because you see.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, Senator Blas?
Point of inquiry. So am I made to understand, other than the legislative intent, there have been no changes
That's
By-
correct.
by the committee?
By the committee, that's
to the
correct.
bill?
Oh, that's good.
And so, the legislative intent as well was not done in committee, it was done prior to introduction of Bill 413. So we got the submission from the Election Commission pursuant to law, and the only thing we added was the intent, just to explain what it is this bill is about. Okay, so we have Senator Dueñas.
I don't know if this would be appropriate at this time, Mr. Chair, but I am currently doing my review, and as you know, there is pending legislation with regard to independent candidates. And I guess I would just ask at the outset, is there any direction that I could take immediately going to, because at least 3 sections I reviewed now, it seems silent.
Yeah, if we could address that when we get to that section,
Okay.
if we can reserve that for that time, okay?
So I guess then it will be clearly pointed out that it's in that section as we go along.
Yes, if you raise it up, then we'll recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Barnes?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking over a draft version, and I don't know how, my office received this, and it was dated February 9th, 2012, and that was at 1:35 And as we look at the legislation as it exists right now in 413, it's an act to repeal and reenact the chapters. And as I look at it, I see there's a lot of strike-throughs, there's a lot of underlines, there's, and dashes out. So I just want to make sure that when we go through this, I'm going to try and work with both sheets. This was the draft that was submitted to the legislature and revised by the commission, or was it worked in committee? Because I'm looking at both, and I see that there was a lot of work done, and I just want to say, I don't want to take away from any of what the commissioners were doing, but I do see that there was a lot of work, and looks like a lot of additions in here.
Okay.
So
Just to be clear-
maybe
Thank
to
you.
be clear and work that, so I don't want the listening audience to know that much wasn't changed, especially with what was perceived in the public that needed to be corrected, when I do see that there was a lot of draft work done here.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, when the commission submitted the proposed legislation, it was submitted as what you see as Bill 413, without any strike-through, and without any indication where the changes were made. What the committee had to do prior to introduction was create a digest, and that's what you see in front of you now, just to make it a little bit easier for the members to see where these changes were made. Okay? A copy was given a few weeks ago, yes, to every office. So we'll go ahead and it's also in the committee report. I believe so. So we'll go ahead and move on. We'll have Maria, go ahead.
Jesus Masi, Senator. In the table of contents, starting with the copy I have that I'm referring to was downloaded from the committee report. I'm sorry, from the committee digest. So if we have the same page numbers, it may be more efficient that way. To begin, the legislative finding and intent was not submitted by the Guam Election Commission. That was put on after we submitted the bill. Going down the table of contents, initially there were 21, the current law has 21 chapters. The first chapter that was taken out was the one on verification of signatures. That was originally, I believe, chapter 18. What we did with that was we put it right inside the previous chapter. So it was not taken out, it just came at the end of the previous chapter. The other major revision is just to compile all the campaign offenses and penal provisions into chapter 8. I'm sorry, into chapter 8. So all that has been compiled into chapter 8. As Senator Ruth had mentioned, all the penal provisions are in chapter 8. You may find penal provisions in other chapters as you go through it, but if they appear in another chapter, they will also appear in chapter 8. Okay. I think the first strike-through was showing in chapter 14 on page 3, and that one shows that penal provision is has been stricken out, and chapter 14 is now provisional voting. Page 3.
That's right.
Okay, and then on chapter 16, Article 6 is now verification of petitioners. All those articles are put in from from previous chapter. Chapter 17 is now election campaign contributions and expenditures. Chapter 18 and 19 were not touched at all, except for numbering. They originally were chapters 20 and 21. And that's the outline of Title III. In Chapter 1, Section 1110 in the outline, point 1, runoff elections, that's just the numbering. It has a section by itself. One 1110.1 runoff elections. The chapter 5 on the digest.
It's page 3.
And page. We took it off. Yeah, just for the numbering.
That's correct. That's the correction. So it's just a numbering.
Yeah, and just to indicate to you that that's to make it more fluid, that's what we did throughout Title III. Okay. And then 1121 is now recall of elected officials. And that again is just the numbering sequence. Page 4. Page 6 on hers.
No, the title, just and it's on page 6.
Which section?
Just the table. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Then we go right into the chapter itself. We just went through the outline. In the chapter itself, we changed law to code. Right here. That would be on the title. Right. Okay. And then there are the definitions that appear below.
Are we okay with the definitions here? What she just referenced earlier were just the table of contents. Now we're going into the actual substance of each of those. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I know you're saying, are we okay with the definitions? And I think maybe just so everyone is on the same page, because I mean, I do have my draft copy, and I've asked, our protocol office to call all the senatorial offices to have them bring then the draft copy so we can follow along with you. But maybe, Maria, what would be best, because I know you're saying where we did a change in the title, and if you go to 1106 where it says general election, the original statute, of course, says regular, and now the recommendation is general election rather than regular election. So just some of those things, maybe just to say what those changes are as we go down. I mean, I can see it, but maybe those who don't have their draft copy may not be able to follow along. I think that's what you're seeing happen here. So we're hoping to have the offices bring the senator's copy, their draft copy, so they can go along.
Okay, so would you like to take a few minutes recess until the copies are here?
It would be best, because I think right now there's only 3 of us here on the floor that, actually have a copy, and the others still don't have their copies yet, so
Okay, we'll be in recess.
thank you.
Which copy am I going to go back? This one?
You can share with me, or sharing is caring.
reconvened, and we'll have Maria now continue where she left off. And also, the digest with all the changes can be found on the legislature website on the committee report. So those of you who don't have a copy now can follow through using the version online.
Before I begin, I'd like to welcome two of our members from Guam Election Commission. We have to my very left, Member John Taitano, and to my very right is Member Don Weekly. Oh, and okay, Chris was in here earlier too, and to Don Weekly's left is Member Chris Carrillo. We're on page 6 and of the digest. Okay. Okay. We're on 1106. The definition of general election. Okay. The definition of regular election was not removed. It's further down on section 1109. And throughout the code, what we tried to do as mandated is take away territory. So you'll see that throughout Title III as well. Okay. 1107 is the definition of primary election. It's shown as being added on. Merely a number change, as indicated in the outline.
Senator Pangilinan?
I just want to ask a question. I'm sure it would get me. When we say general election, then, and we refer to the candidates that are elected during a regular election, a special election, or a primary election, that's all referenced to in the other parts of the law?
That's correct.
So that when we say senator, we know that that senator can't be confused with running in a local election, that he's running in a general and a primary election?
Inside of Title III, yes.
Within the title?
Yes.
Okay. And so there's no need to distinguish between the congressional election, which is a federal election, and regular election, primary election, runoff? There's no need to distinguish? Counsel?
I don't believe so. I mean, based on the UOCAVA, I think as long as the sections of UOCAVA make it clear that if there's a federal office involved, then UOCAVA has to apply. I think that covers what we have to do.
Okay. Going on to 11112, again, that's a number change. And references to other sections are shown on page, changes have been shown to the references in the other sections on page 7. From section 112 to 1113.
I have a question on 1112. Now, this is how a political party gets recognized. So the process with regards to polling 10% of the vote in a general election. One of the things I've always, I don't think I've ever gotten an answer is what about the first time that individual or group of candidates run? How do you get to the general election to poll 10%. So in other words, if tomorrow I decide to go out and declare myself that I've got this nu Imas Maulik Paraguahan nu party, and I find myself a running mate and I run for governor and declare myself under that party, how do I get to the general election?
According to Title III, upon garnering 10%, this is as a write-in.
As a write-in. So how does somebody who declares a party, organizes, puts themselves on the ballot, how do they get in that first election to the general election? I say they go straight to the general election. Yes.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, Bill 404 will handle that.
Badly, I know.
Okay, we
You want to go to the general, right?
we'll recognize Senator Ruth.
Well, I'm no attorney, let's get that out front.
Okay.
But the law is very specific on how political or so-called political parties are recognized. So if you have fulfilled 1112 subsection A and B, where you organize and you have officers and everything and you have a full slate, that in itself gets you on the ballot. And in order for that political party to be recognized as a continuing political party, you would have had to have polled, the required number. But A and B addresses that. How do you get on the ballot? You have to form, you have to be all of that, and that's how you get on the ballot.
Yes, let me be clear then. If I form a party, Imas Maulik Paraguahan na party, I go straight to the general election if I don't have a primary in my party.
Well, that would have to be answered legally. I don't think I'm in a position, but off the cuff, I would think that yes, you do go straight to the general election because at the time that the primary election is held, the primary election is for party.
Right.
The Guam Election Commission is merely conducting the political parties' nominations.
Right.
So that it doesn't have to pay for anything. The government has to pay for it.
Okay.
So they're not recognized up to that point of the primary.
And then, of course, to come back with a slate under that party banner next time, you have to have the 10%.
That's correct.
The first time you organize your party, you go straight to the general election. If there is no contest within your party.
So the idea would be to have your own 15 candidates.
Right.
You know.
Well, does it say you have to issue a full slate?
No,
No.
it doesn't. But
No.
if you are going to go through all the trouble of getting organized and getting recognized and everything, you should have a full slate, or I would think that I'd want a full slate.
Okay, so your initial run is you kind of get a pass.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Because at the time that the primary is held, they're not a political party.
Right. That's correct.
They're
not a
it's only
recognized
Democrat and
political party.
Republican.
They may be a chartered political party, but they're not a
That's correct.
recognized political
Yes.
party.
And by the same token, the commission may choose to not entertain that up until that point of the primary and act on it after the primary, and then therefore say, oh, now you can be on the general.
Yeah, we'll put you on the general.
Yeah.
Is that the reading of the council as well?
I'm looking at 1114, formation of new political parties. And it talks about having to poll the required amounts in 112. Pardon me?
That must mean that in order to fulfill that your requirement, you have to be placed on the ballot in a general election in your first race. Yeah, yeah. You just formed a party.
But the president has directed us
Yeah,
until the party is
that's-
qualified as directed by polling in a general election. Yeah?
I know, but the reason why I'm asking this is that's unclear because in previous times they say, no, you have to get 10%. And I said, but how can I get 10% if I never get on the general election
We
ballot?
as a commission, we cannot preclude anyone from being on the ballot, otherwise we'd be accused of disenfranchising voters.
Okay.
So, Senator Dueñas's bill was an attempt to handle that.
Yes.
I'm not sure what's going on with the bill. In my mind, you cannot have an independent candidate have a lower qualification than any recognized party's candidate. So Senator Dueñas's bill, that was a problem in my mind with Senator Dueñas's bill. There needs to be some kind of statutory requirement that an independent would have to meet similar qualifications to a Republican candidate or a Democratic candidate. Senator Dueñas's bill would probably help. It needs to be, the qualifications need to be more clear. And
Mr. Chair, point of information. That bill does address the same qualifications, just like the independent provision within the current law, how an individual has to qualify for the election. The only thing it does, other than the qualifying for the election, it raises the threshold of securing petition signatures, which is done nationwide in terms of qualifying independent candidates. So there is the clear qualification for the ballot, but I think it's the threshold requirement that Mr. Carrillo has the problem with. And I have no problem amending that on the floor. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Speaker Wampet.
Mr. Chair, we are discussing Bill 413, not a bill that's in the calendar. So can we just please stay with 413? And whatever needs to happen later with that other bill would have to be addressed separately.
Okay, thank you very much, Speaker Wampet. Senator Barnes.
Mr. Chair, as the previous speaker asked, as the good senator from Barrigada asked in reference to the recognized political party and how to get on, wouldn't it be easier for you guys to take the sections of 114 and section 7108 and then reiterate it and delineate it in 1112 and do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4? Because if it'd be easier for better delineation and better clarity, I don't mind posing that amendment and have legal counsel work with me on that. Is take the provisions, because the recognized political party states that you have to have 10% of the total votes cast in, and then it goes then they were offices to, each candidate receives not less than 10% of the total votes for the office to which he, provided in the case of the election of the delegates at large at 10% shall be computed, and then on section 1114, it shows the formulation of the parties as directed by section 7108, and 7108 gives I guess the complete delineation of what's there. I hope. Am I saying that correct?
So is that amendment you
Well,
want?
that's what I'm saying. If at this time we can do at least a 30-second legislative recess so that I can speak with council and reiterate and put into section 1112 for this recognized political party the steps based A, B, C, D, and item that. Can we have a 30-second recess, please?
Before that, I want to recognize Senator Respicio before that recess.
Yeah, before that, just along those lines, Speaker Pangilinan raised a very good question, and I'm wondering if council agrees to that question. And before we take a recess, maybe we can go over what those steps are, so we can see if the Guam Election Commission is in agreement and is something that they'd like to for us to support. Because what I understand is if someone is independent candidate, they just proceed to the general election because the Guam Election Commission will not entertain that because they're not a recognized political party?
You know, and just to clarify the question, I think that there's a difference here. The section we were discussing, 1112, speaks about the political party, and I think the other question out there is an independent, which is not a party.
Yeah.
That's right.
Two separate issues.
That's right. So the question that was pending is, can you just repeat that and we can ask the council?
Well, my question is then, for a candidate of a chartered political party who is seeking recognition, and the only way he can get recognition is to garner 10% in a general election, does that mean then that this newly chartered party during their first election go with an uncontested primary within their new chartered party goes directly to the general election ballot? That's my question.
Of 1114.
Ooh, I like that.
That would be my interpretation. Now, whether or not this body wants that to be what it is, that's up to this body. It's not up to the Election Commission. But just reading it, that appears to be the only way to...
The only way to meet that 10% to get recognition.
Otherwise, you'd be in a true catch-22.
That's right. So that's why I always thought that that would be the way to build some excitement into a general election.
Okay. Thank you. So that answered all the questions, Speaker Ben. Okay, thank you. So with that, now we're going to take a 30-second recess for Senator Barnes. Committee of the Whole is back in order. Senator Barnes?
Sito Smasi, Tatlu, Mr. Chair, and after further discussions with some of my colleagues and both our legal counsel, I think at this time right now, in order to be safe, what I'd like to move is to take section 114 with the formation of a new political party, and take section 112, the recognized political party, and switch, renumber them, which means the formation of a new political party will now be 112, and then 112 will fall under 114. Putting the horse before the cart and not the cart before the horse.
Okay. On that amendment, Senator Palacios, you're recognized.
Well, when you do that, just make sure that as it is right now on the 114, it made mention of the 1112. And so if the 1114 is going to make, so it's actually a technical correction. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Palacios. Senator Blas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know, Mr. Chair, whether that actually resolves the problem. I can and I appreciate with regards to it being a start, but it still does not resolve the issue with regards to how I think we just need to read this in its entirety and in context and see. We're going to probably need some time to be able to digest how this is probably going to, as a start, to resolve it. But I don't see it right. Just cursory review of this. I don't see how this resolves the issue with regards to the whole question as to how the party is recognized.
Thank you, Senator Blas. It's 10 minutes to noon. Is there a motion to recess and maybe use that time to?
I think I understand where the previous speaker is coming from, but this is something that's very simple. First of all, really, is just do that switch in terms of the section numbers, and then have that just go through, and then we come back and actually talk about C 111 or 1114 C. And then, so that does not change yet, and it does not just totally leave that question out. So I think we take care of that, then we know already that we are then making that switch, but we would still be now on the discussion of 114C. So that's, is I think, what everyone is concerned about. No. Because we're switching, the motion is to switch 1112 with 1114. So it's just changing the numbers and moving the sections one before the other. That's so far the only change. And so that's what I'm saying is that because I agree with the previous speaker that it doesn't address the question yet on some of the requirements in terms of a party actually being formed.
Okay, thank you. On that amendment?
Just to make sure.
Just to make that change. So 112 is now 114, and 1114 is now 1112. Senator Blas?
I think before we make those changes, why, and I guess with the commission members there and you, Mr. Chair, why was it placed this way to begin with? I mean, I'm trying to understand the flow and whether or not switching 112 or 114 is going to disrupt, the...
Okay, as I understand, there wasn't any change by the commission, their submission now, so it's the amendment now that would make that change.
We're jumping 112 and 114, but in the middle of this, you got 113 that I think we have to be very careful with if we do make that change. I'm going to move, Mr. Chair, that maybe, yeah, I think we need to take a break here to be able to digest this a little bit.
Thank you, Senator Blas. We still have that amendment, unless there is another motion to adjourn, to recess for lunch
Then
before
I'll
we
withdraw
vote on
mine
that.
too, yeah.
I'm sorry?
I withdraw my motion because there was a previous. my
Okay,
motion is-
so we'll go ahead and call for the vote on Senator Munoz Barnes' amendment. All those in favor? There's no objection. There's no objection, so motion carries. So now we're moving on to, okay, we'll recess.
Mr. Chairman, can we
Senator Respicio?
can we recess till 2 p.m. today?
Okay, we're on recess till 2 p.m. Thank you.